Welcome to HipHopNow podcast. If you're from the future, you know what to do. Get your ass out of here. Don't disrespect the legend. Hip-hop is here to stay. Let's get right into the business.
What up, y'all? Welcome to another episode of HipHopNow podcast, a podcast designed to keep you up to date on everything hip-hop, music, and culture that happened throughout the week. And we are back in full effect for 2023. Big shout out to all the supporters over at patreon.com/hiphopnow who've supported this podcast through and through and continue to do so. If you would like to become a supporter of this podcast, well, patreon.com/hiphopnow. You can learn all about the different tiers, the benefits, the exclusives, the timed exclusives, everything that we have to offer over at that link, which is in the description of this episode. Now, I know y'all, we said it. We back in the building. We back in the place to be. We back in the dungeons of rap on some hip hop stuff. And if you're listening to this podcast, and I've talked about this for years, if you're a supporter for years and years and years, I've talked about this, of doing a video version of HipHopNow podcast. Now, I flirted with some ideas. I've tried a couple of things, tried to feel out what do I really like. And I just decided to keep it simple, as you can see, very simple setup. But nevertheless, some people want to see you when you do what you do. And I have no problem being on camera. I mean, they call me Vegas. What do you expect? But for those that don't know, new to this channel, and those who are wondering, didn't you have a, last episode type deal? Yes. But the hip hop gods spoke to me and they have said, 50 years of hip hop is happening in 2023. How could you not have HipHopNow podcasts around and available? And to be quite honest, my numbers never dipped. In some ways, they kind of went up. If you follow my Facebook page, shout out to you. It's liver than it's ever been as far as the followers, and I'm barely doing anything. So in 2023, we're going to do a little bit more. We're going to bring some stuff back, and we're starting with video version of the podcast that you can check out. So if you're listening to the audio version and you're like, I wouldn't mind watching the video. I didn't know you had a channel. The link is in the description of this episode. Now, before we get right into the business, let me just let you know, if you've been a long time listener of the podcast, the format is going to change, right? So HipHopNow podcast would keep you up to date in the latest news of the week. Once a week, drop an episode every Friday or Saturday or so. Well, we're going to change that slightly, right? Instead of kind of going through a number of stories, what I found over the years, especially in recent years when I've been doing this podcast, is that honestly, there isn't a lot to talk about that doesn't involve, court cases. Unfortunately, people passing away. And it seemed like there wasn't enough talk around the music. I feel like sometimes that's hit or miss, but in order to gather stories that people will probably care about, I picked three. There you go. 3 episodes. 3 episodes. 3 stories. 3 news stories, hip hop stories that I think not only are stories worthy of you learning about, but also what this podcast does is I give my personal perspective on it. And you can too in the comment section, wherever you get this podcast, or you can hit me up on Twitter at VegasWorldINC, Instagram, or TikTok. Same name. It's all the same. You're good. But nevertheless, big shout out to everybody watching. Big shout out to those in the past who picked up merch. And if you can't tell, not only is it hoodie season, but we got a new logo. New theme. Shout out to McLovin Beatz. All that good stuff. Everything is new. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, like I know what episode this is. Don't ask me. Big shout out to those who watched and listened. But my preview of the year episodes are typically big for me as far as like the numbers I do. I do not know why. I don't know if people just like the idea of guessing what will happen during the year or what. I don't know what it is, but nevertheless, I like doing it and people seem to like to hear me talk about these things. But we keep it a new format. 3 things. So, number 1, let me pull out the iPhone. No hate, you know, for if you're an Android user, whatever. I used to use Android also. Might come back. That flip phone joint is crazy. But nevertheless, number 1, 2023 preview. Let's get right into the business. 50 years of hip hop in 2023. That's not a prediction, but huge, huge milestone for the genre of music, not because of its existence, but because hip hop is more popular today than it's ever been. It's the number 1 streamed format. It has insurrected January 6th, folks. Everything across pop culture, across the world, hip hop is attached, whether you hear the beat on a insurance commercial, or you hear a song you know in a commercial, or you see dances or TikTok, everything. It is basically a part of pop culture in such a huge way that even other genres of music emulate hip hop or combine hip hop sounds. Lil Nas X, right? Essentially make something that to most would be like a country record. And then kind of trap at the same time. And it's huge. It's instant success. He's a superstar all of a sudden as a result of that one record. Why? Because it's a perfect combination of bringing hip hop into a world it didn't really have a presence. Still doesn't, but at least it shows the power of hip hop. So when you're talking about 50 years of hip hop, obviously this year I'm going to do a lot along the lines of talking about that, including my other show, That Time in Hip Hop with the homie Tony. We're going to have a special that will analyze 50 years of hip hop in general. But also for 2023, what I see, and it's already begun, is so many things happening, not only to celebrate hip hop, but also to highlight everything about it over the years. And I think in general, what you thought you knew, you're going to learn more, right? There's the Universal Hip Hop Museum, or Museum of Hip Hop, whatever it's called, which broke ground maybe 2 years ago. I covered that, or a year ago. I can't remember what it was. That's not going to open in 2023, but I believe it opens in 2024, and they've done a lot to ramp up that feeling. Y'all should give me a job. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, y'all should give me a job. But you know what I'm saying? Like, we'll have an actual museum, official museum, right? Not somebody crib and they knew a lot of people and they got some Run DMC sneakers from Crush Groove. All respect due, but we're talking about Smithsonian status. We're talking about, if you've ever been to a museum like the Smithsonian, the African American History Museum. That museum is crazy, right? On that level. Now, it's not going to be that huge, but I mean, it's going to be its own building. They broke ground to build a building for hip hop, and everybody that's tied to it, you can already tell it's going to be great. It's a great idea. It's a long time coming. It'll be 50 years of hip hop. Why not? In a lot of ways, what's also dope is a lot of the pioneers, excuse me, of this game are still around, right? A lot of those early dudes that are kind of looked at as the guys who started certain parts of hip hop, whether it's DJing or rapping or, you know, first hit single, a lot of those guys are still around. So even though we have, you know, dope documentaries on stuff like Netflix, and Mass Appeal has done some stuff, it'd be a great time to kind of revisit that. Also, you have like the final season of the Wu-Tang series, which on this, subscribe to this channel, stay locked into this podcast. We're gonna do some reviews of the final season. But we have that. I'm pretty sure there's gonna be other things that are gonna be announced. I really wish there was a film of some sort, or a biopic, right? Because I felt like Straight Outta Compton, Straight Outta Compton is hands down the best hip hop biopic. It doesn't even come close, right? It's a little long, could have cut some areas, but it is hands down the best. Nothing comes close. It's a movie. That's what it needs to be, right? It's a biopic. Can't just be a retelling of what happened. In a lot of ways, it has to be a film that you walk away learning more about the artists and looking at the characters as characters, and not, well, they better do that thing they did with Dre, or they better do that thing they did with. That's what I did with the Biggie joint. It was kind of like, and the Tupac joint. It's like, oh, these are the things people know. Let's show them happening. Nah, man. We need some more biopics about hip hop. You got to do the right people. And back when the Straight Outta Compton joint came out, I said Public Enemy would be great. And I get it. They're like the same but the opposite of NWA, but not necessarily as popular, unfortunately. But I think it could be if you make a film, right? If you make a film about Public Enemy, not a retelling of events, but a film. I wouldn't mind an Ice-T. Like, we know about Ice-T, but we don't really know about Ice-T. And Ice-T's career is kind of crazy when you think about it. He's a hip hop head. He was almost considered like the father of gangster rap. We know who he called that. Don't worry. But then he went to this acting stuff, the cop killer stuff, with the album. Like, Ice-T has lived a long career, so he has a ton of story to be told behind everything he does, and I think you could get him casted easily. Y'all light-skinned dudes out there can play him. But, so it would just be dope to see Ice-T have a biopic. I think more people would be interested because they know Ice-T on several levels, whether you know him from hip-hop or you know him from Law and Order, right? Or Twitter, right? Maybe you only know him from Twitter. Whatever the case may be. But nevertheless, a hip-hop biopic of some sort, LL Cool J, anyone, would be dope. So hopefully that happens, but I know with it being 50 years of hip-hop, and some of the plans like Showtime's Hip Hop 50 thing, I'm pretty sure we're going to get a lot of special things to celebrate 50 years of hip-hop. Now, see, I started with that as my preview and one of my three, because I think it's going to be a trickle-down effect. I can't see most rappers, especially rappers that are still around and still relevant, not wanting to drop something new for the 50th year of hip-hop. It's a missed opportunity to not do that. And one person who I think is going to do that is none other than Dr. Dre. I think when Dr. Dre got divorced, he hit the studio. We saw, right? He hit the studio. He was in the studio with mad people. We know he recorded other things, so it wasn't all like, oh, Dr. Dre's working on the album. No. But just seeing him hit the studio and publicize it in that way, the last time he publicized him being in the studio that aggressively was when he had an album coming out to go with Straight Outta Compton. And that's been a while since that. It's safe to say, and I say this every preview, and it doesn't happen, but come on, 50 years of hip-hop, we got to get Detox. I'm just saying. Now, will it be the Detox it was always supposed to be? No. We've heard the stories. Some of those beats, some of those songs exist on other projects that are not Dr. Dre's. We've heard it before. But I like to believe that Dr. Dre has way more than what we heard, right? I like to believe that Dr. Dre may scrap everything he had and create something new, right? Let's not forget, because it still hasn't happened on a level that I feel like, oh, that was that thing. But on Instagram, around the time when Dr. Dre was, back in the studio and he pulling up with Snoop and DLC and they flicking it up and they on IG and all this stuff, Lady of Rage is here, blah, blah, blah. There was a point in time where the entire Death Row crew, Lady of Rage, DLC, Dog Pound, Snoop, everybody was in the studio together. And I'm like, where's that song? Where's that project? Where's that album? I think some stuff is on the way from Dr. Dre. I can't say it's going to be called Detox, but in some ways I feel like he's moved on from the Chronic theme. It might not be Detox. It might just be Chronic 3000, right? Why not? Why not just leave the Detox thing alone and just say Chronic 3000? Because let's keep it real. Chronic 1, classic. Chronic 2001, classic in my opinion. That Aftermath thing, that was garbage, but nevertheless. Compton, the album that came out was straight out of Compton. That album was pretty dope, and I think a lot of people heard it, thought it was cool, and moved on. So it didn't have the staying power or the effect of the Chronic. A perfectionist like Dr. Dre, he's not going to let that slide. Even if he was happy with what was presented. I loved it. But I can't call it a classic, and I can't call it on par with both those Chronic albums. But a Chronic 3000 or 3 or whatever you want to call it, Chronic 3 stacks, whatever. You got to have 3 stacks on it if you're going to call it 3 stacks. I feel like on the 50th year of hip hop, it will be dope. And I get the vibe that Dr. Dre does not want to release nothing that's not dope. For example, Dr. Dre just did the Super Bowl and reminded everybody of the work he's put in. The work he's put in with Mary J. Blige giving her hits, introducing you and us to Eminem, introducing you and us to Kendrick and 50 Cent. It was like a reminder. And it was one of the best performances of the Super Bowl in a while, right? Not saying it was a long time, but it's one of the best ever. Why wouldn't Dr. Dre do that? 50 years of hip hop, as long as he's been in this game, things he's pioneered, why wouldn't he, get busy for the 50th year and say, yo, don't forget about us and what we did? I'm saying, you know what I would love, but this is hypothetical. What if there was one Tupac album that we hadn't heard? We hadn't heard the bars for the most part, and just Tupac, and it's just produced all by Dre. I could dream. But that's one thing that I think is going to happen. I'm just saying. I think it's going to happen. Now, the final prediction, so to speak, for 2023, for the 50th year of hip hop, has to do with another release. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't know if it's going to happen. It might happen. It could happen. Chances are it will happen. Maybe it should happen. I'm saying happen a lot. But I think we get a final album from Jay-Z. Not meaning he's retiring from rap. I'm not talking about the Black Album. I didn't fall for it. You did. I saw y'all at the concert with your diamond signs up. Over. Y'all thought it was over. That was either. Hopefully it was over there. Y'all thought it was y'all thought it was over. So y'all had your diamonds up and over. Yo, we love you, man. You can retire. And then he came right back with a whack album. I'm talking about Kingdom Come. Obviously, he's done much better than that since then. The last album Jay-Z released was 444, an album in which I really liked because I felt like it was so different from everything in his catalog. It was the first time Jay-Z took an entire project and was completely vulnerable from beginning to end. When I say that, I'm not talking about you emo rappers. I'm talking about the fact that he shared a lot about his personal life that previously he would only share in spurts, right? You know, you would hear stories here and there. You might get a verse. You might get a mention here and there that kind of gave you a window into his personal life, whether that be the past or the present, but never in this way as 444 did. Right, so I liked it. I liked the production. I thought it was cool. It was different, right? You can't expect Jay-Z, just like with Nas, you can't expect Jay-Z to do what you remember. He has to, as an artist, he has to do something different, or else he's not growing, right? And then, you know, Jay did some verses here and there, and people went kind of over it in some ways. And then Jay Electronica finally was dropping an album during the pandemic. But Jay-Z was all over that album. And I mean, to the point where it's a Jay-Z and Jay Electronica album, if you ask me. And what's crazy, if you haven't heard it, is the fact that Jay-Z murders that album. Like, this is supposed to be a Jay Electronica album, and he stands out. It's called a written testimony. Jay-Z stands out as the front runner of who's dopest on this album. Like, it's not Jay-Z or it's not Jay Electronica featuring Jay-Z. It feels like Jay-Z featuring Jay Electronica. And his performance was, I mean, it's a performance you hadn't heard from Jay-Z in years. Like, forget 444 and God Did, like, and that's the Jay-Z we know now. The Jay-Z on a written testimony was like 97 Hove. And most cats who like Jay-Z was like, yo, if only he can give us an album where he has that kind of inspired energy. Now, I think he was inspired to help Jay Electronica get off the bench, right? So he did what he did to help. And I think he was excited. And I think in a lot of ways, he just was inspired by Jay Electronica lyrically, and that's why you got the Jay-Z you got. When Jay-Z is inspired, he makes some pretty dope stuff, right? You can tell when Jay's kind of phoning a verse in, which, you know, his phoning a verse in is still better than a lot of people's, you know, concentrated writing process. But nevertheless, like, I feel like Jay is not only going to be inspired by the notion of dropping the album on the 50th year of hip hop that could have a theme related to that, right? Which I wouldn't mind, right? Maybe there's some vibes from different genres of not genres, but different sections of hip hop, right? Different types of beats like boom bap or some West Coast funk, or some down south bounce, whatever it may be. I could see him being inspired by that. Now, do I know? Hell no, I don't know. I don't know that man. But nevertheless, watching his patterns, watching his inspirations, hearing from him, hearing the things that you can tell is important to him when it comes to hip hop, seeing Nas and Hit Boy do what they do, 4 straight projects of heat. You can't tell me Jay-Z's not inspired by that, and not inspired to write a verse to be featured on something else, inspired to do something himself, but he has to do it right. And him and Beyonce get down where you don't know the project is going to come until there's rumors first, right? And then the rumors seem true, but you're still unsure. And then a single is announced or leaked in some cases. I don't know, maybe that's 2010s or whatever. My bad. And then you kind of see something official and people say, yo, it's coming out Friday, right? Here's the track listing. Here's everybody who's doing production. People get crazy hype. They call him the classic. They haven't heard one damn word come out his mouth yet. But I could see it happening, y'all. I'm looking into the hip hop crystal ball for 2023, and I could see it happening. And the last point I'll make, right? Obviously, Jay-Z would be inspired, just like Dr. Dre. Not only for 50 years of hip hop, but just watching his peers release dope projects, right? But also, anytime wifey Beyonce is out and does what she does, that has to be inspiring also. Because Jay-Z and Beyonce kind of released in the same way, right? Like Beyonce is rumored. Oh, I think Beyonce album was supposed to come out, blah, 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 blah. Boom, is out. She on a clear horse on the cover, and the music is disco and house. Nobody knew it was coming. Nobody saw it until boom, the album's out. Everybody loves it. TikToks and everything. I can't see Jay-Z, at least for the very last time, saying this is my final album, right? I would even take an EP at this point. So essentially, that's what I think. For 2023, I feel like 50 years of hip hop is going to inspire a number of rappers to drop projects, some long awaited, some surprises, whatever it may be. Everybody's going to try to get in on the attention, even though we know hip hop gets a lot of attention, but the attention that hip hop will have throughout the year because it's 50 years. And when you have big name rappers that command the attention of the industry, when they drop, I can't see why that wouldn't happen throughout the year, especially towards the tail end, especially around August, the actual birthday of hip hop. But it's difficult to see how that couldn't be a thing because, again, I mean, I know we got Nas and Kendrick and all that, but there are a number of people who can still drop, right? Nas teased the project with DJ Premier. I don't think it's going to happen, but who's to say he doesn't already have it? We don't know, right? We just don't know. And really quick, I said 3, but I still have a couple things I wish would happen, right? I wish Havoc was sitting on a Mobb Deep project that wasn't released yet. That would be dope, you know? I mean, some of these things are happening. Let's keep it real. But I wish there would be some return to radio's support of traditional sounding hip hop, right? You don't have to push what the kids like to the curb. You just have to blend in what's new and sounds traditional because there's still a big audience for it. I think Nas having the attention of the entire industry, young and old, speaks volumes. Not just because he's Nas, not just because it's Jay-Z, but because the music is good and it's worthy of being played in the same lane with whoever's new. So, what do you think is going to happen in the year 2023? Are you excited for 50 years of hip hop? Are you ready to consume all the hip hop content that may come your way? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Please know that this podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. All you have to do is search in your favorite podcasting app for HipHopNow podcast. Hit that subscribe button and stay locked in to weekly updates on hip hop, music, and culture. If you are watching the video version, you see the ticker. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment. But most importantly, share it with people you know enjoy this kind of content. Until next time, y'all, I am not a critic. I'm a fan. Peace.